So I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight and welcome to our third Wildlife Paint Night. My name is Jen Christofferson. I'm the Alaska Outreach Coordinator for Defenders of Wildlife. With me, I have Nicole Whittington Evans, who is the Alaska Program Director for Defenders of Wildlife. She will be the one that's going to do our short little speaking portion tonight. I also have our painter, local Alaskan artist, Carrie Becker with me. And we are really excited for you to join us today. If you want, you can drop in the chat just to make sure it's working on your end, where you are zooming in from, just so we can kind of see where we're capturing everybody from. And then just as a reminder, we are recording this event. This is in case you missed it. We'll probably post this on our Facebook page. You can also email me for the recording once it is finished. Liz and Tom are from Virginia. We've got Anchorage, California, Phoenix, Oregon, Fort Worth, Texas, Florida, Wisconsin, Anchorage, Palmer, Alaska, Denver, Orange County, Texas, Ohio. Whoa, hello from Guatemala. That's awesome. The previous animal, someone was asking what we have done. Last time we did brown bear, and then the first one was our cooking the beluga. All right, so for those of you who are unfamiliar with our organization, I'll just give a short introduction to who we are. Defenders of Wildlife is a national nonprofit organization. We have a local office here in Anchorage, which is on the traditional lands of the Dena'ina. We are dedicated to the protection of all native animals and plants in their natural communities. In Alaska, we work to protect the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, the Kenai National Wildlife Refuge, Eisenbeck National Wildlife Refuge, Tongass National Forest, the National Petroleum Reserve, Alaska, and other key ecosystems from the threats posed by climate change, unsustainable development, and unsound wildlife and habitat policies and management practices. We focus on endangered species, including polar bears and Cook Inlet belugas. So now we'll get started with our paint night. I'll introduce our artist. We'll paint, have a short intermission where we'll learn about polar bears and the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge from Nicole Whittington Evans. This will be after we've got the initial layer down. Hopefully everybody will be starting out with a black canvas. If not, hurry and paint it right now because it has to be dry before you can start painting. And then after that short talk, we will finish up the painting. So Carrie Becker is based out of Eagle River, Alaska. Her style was developed with influences in realism, post-impressionism, and Hellenistic. She was trained in the fine arts from Brigham Young University in Idaho and graduated with a degree in integrated studio that focuses on in-depth studio work with an emphasis on crossing conceptual and media boundaries. Finding the textures, movement, and shapes in nature is Carrie's true passion and inspiration. But for now, we are going to turn it over to Carrie.
Hi guys, hey, we're focused on this canvas and we're all good. I'm going to start off by showing you what colors we're dealing with. On my paint palette right now, I have this dark, this darker green right here. You want to see that? It kind of looks like that. Then I've also got a dark blue and a dark purple. The key to when you're selecting your colors for these northern lights, I'm going to just grab a little bit of this green so you can see. You want it to be transparent. So it's not got a lot of white in it, okay? So for each of your colors, the blue, the green, the purple, you're gonna want it to kind of be a little bit on the transparent side. If there's white mixed in, it'll look kind of like that, and you don't want that option. You want this option, okay? All right. Let me just, okay, so we're gonna start off with a black canvas today. If you do have to paint your canvas on the fly right now, paint the black canvas from here to here first and hit it with a blow dryer as quick as you can, because we're going to be highlighting this top. We're going to be doing the northern lights first. So let's see. Okay. All righty. So we're going to start off with a piece of chalk. This is going to be kind of like our drawing instrument, and it's great because you can erase it as you go if you need to. We're going to be working on doing these, we're going to be putting lines on our paper, kind of highlighting where we're going to be putting the bottom part of the northern lights, okay? So I'm just going to start off from over here and come down like this. Kind of like when you're pushing along a long hair on the shower wall, you kind of push the string down and it kind of makes these nice gentle curves is kind of what you want to accomplish. I'm going to do another one right there. And I'm going to do another one kind of coming down here. Another one like that. Okay. Nice and thin with the chalk. If you don't know already, I love to use a sharpener on my chalk, just like one of those big honking ones. It works great. And you'll be surprised on how much you can accomplish with chalk doing drawings this way. Okay. So go ahead and lay down those chalk lines right there. And then go ahead and squirt onto your canvas those nice, beautiful colors we got going on. Okay. Give you a second to do that. Everybody have their nice hair squiggles down on their shower wall? Alrighty. So we're going to be using mainly these two brushes right now. And then we're going to be moving on to our nice fluffy straight brush. So this is going to be laying down our white to do the Northern Lights. You'll get what I mean in a second. This one's going to be used to put down our color. When you're making Northern Lights, I find it looks most natural when you start, if you take the Roy G. Biv kind of the heart, or the theory of like green has blue in it, so those two colors can be together. Green doesn't have any place in purple, so you don't want to put those two colors next to each other, but you want to put the blue next to the purple because the blue is in the purple. Does that kind of make sense? So I'm going to take a little bit of water. So my brush is a little wet, and you can just kind of see on the back of my hand about how wet I want that to be. Just enough to light glaze. We're going to get some of our green, and we're going to start in small sections. Reason being is it's going to be a little intimidating your first time, but once you get down the technique, you can go full swath across the paper or the canvas and you'll be good. So I got a little bit of water, just mixing it in, kind of making a slightly drippy paint. Okay. So I'm just going to do a small section right here. So you guys can watch real quick, and then we'll do it. We'll give you some time to work with it. Okay. So I put down a layer of my green, kind of wet, really wet paint. And I'm grabbing a little bit of our white on our fan brush, making a line like that. And I'm going to lay it underneath where my green is, okay?
Carrie, if they don't have a fan brush.
They don't have a fan brush, they can use a fluffy brush, hopefully not this same one, or they can use this dot and you just make dots along the line, and hopefully you have two separate ones so you can switch between the two thinner brushes. I could also have laid down my white using this. Okay, so now that those are still wet, we want to take we're going to take this brush and we're going to move it up straight through the color and then the white. So it's going to move straight up, and we're going to do it again just so you guys can kind of get a sense, because that dried a little bit. So let me just do it one more time. Okay, so I'm going through with the green color, and then I'm doing my white right underneath. Kind of want to make different patterns. You don't want it to all be the same. I'm going to take my white and push it up. And you want this to be really dry, so I'm in between each push of the paint, I'm just drying off my brush and then pulling it up, okay? So go ahead and give that a try while we're still working with just the green real quick. And then that way you can ask me any questions if you need to. And you're gonna pull straight from the bottom going up. If you like go sideways in one draw and then sideways in another one, it's going to create kind of an unreal look. So
Okay, no questions so far, so we're doing good.
good, good. All right, so I'm gonna just mentally divide my page into this is gonna be green, then from here to here is gonna be blue, and then from here to here is gonna be purple on this stripe. And then I'm gonna do something similar to this little block over here, okay? So I'm just gonna, now I'm gonna be working on the green above. Lay down my green, like this. Take my white, go underneath. And fling up. Nice and easy. Drying off my brush nice and good on my handy dandy terry cloth. All right. Now I'm gonna work a little bit of my blue into the, a little bit of my green into my blue, just so it blends between the two. Okay. And I'm going to continue this. Okay. Get my white again. Trying to make sure I'm not making all the same spaced on my fan brush. It's important. Drag directly up, dry off my brush real good, and drag directly up. Kind of don't have any white right there, so while it's still wet, I'm going to add in a little bit more white and then drag up through that. Just going to repeat that process, rinse out my brush and go into my purple, doing that. Going for about that, super drippy, sorry. Can't tilt the paint pad. That would not be good. All right. We're just going to kind of go for this. Here, and I'll do it with the not fan brush in the white so you guys can see kind of me doing that as well.
What happens when you're not getting those nice lines? What am I doing wrong?
Lines when you brush up or lines when you're laying down the paint?
When I'm brushing up, there's just nothing happens.
So you're not laying down enough. So it might be that your white paint's not down thick enough. What I'm creating essentially is like a little puddle of, maybe not puddle, but my brush is it's laying down little dabs of that white, where you might be just, it might be too dry and you might be just dry brushing at it. See how that doesn't pull up, but this one does?
There's nothing left to pull up. Okay.
More paint, more white paint when you put it down into this section.
It's getting so thick. Okay, already I'm just.
So I'm gonna take this one, I'm gonna do walk. See how much paint I have on there? Let's see. Got quite the little hill of paint. I'm just dabbing it directly under. Nice dry brush.
Looks nothing like yours.
Also, you might be just having it too thin of like, or your paint needs to be a little bit thinner, so you could add a little bit of water to your white paint possibly. The viscosity needs to be thinner. It's pretty thin on acrylic, but once in a while.
You can always go back over and
Yes.
repaint, right?
What's really nice about this is because we're not painting the polar bear on top of this, what you can do is you can repaint black over it and redo that section. So it's really nice for being able to get a redo, essentially.
That was a great question, by the way. So if you
Yeah.
have any other questions, feel free to
Is anyone else having problems
Ask.
with their paint?
in the chat or come off mute momentarily.
Anybody else having problems that I can maybe help with?
Looks like everybody's doing pretty good. Chat's pretty quiet, so.
Okay, cool. So we'll give you guys a couple minutes to finish that up. And if you have any questions, just feel free to post that.
I do have my camera focused on the polar bear, and if you can't see the polar bear while you're painting, you can go to the top of the screen and there should be a little blue button, and that scrolls you through the people who are on, and you can just scroll through and look for that polar bear if you want a reference picture as well.
You can also do a zoom in on a different small painting I have too, right underneath. So you can kind of see. This one has stars though, so just be aware. What's great is the Northern Lights are never the same twice, so you don't have to have exact copies of what you're looking at mine. So all sorts of different ribbons and colors.
All right, I'm still seeing people painting, so we'll give another minute or two. Hopefully we can get the northern lights on so that we can start the bear.
Oh, what's great is it's separate, so they can work on it also later if they want to fidget with it more.
Yeah, there'll be about a 15-minute intermission where we'll be listening to Nicole about the Arctic Refuge and polar bears. So you can always do touch up during then too.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't have to be perfect, right?
So if you want to repaint this black, you can just paint over the chalk and start over.
Yeah, so if you want to give it another try, paint it black for now and then just pause and then come back at it when the black paint's dry again.
Yeah. Really don't.
Totally okay to have practice runs.
Yeah, I don't like what I did at all. It doesn't look like anything.
So every painting has an ugly stage, I call it. When you walk away from it and come back 15 minutes later, you'd be surprised on how much you like it. As the artist, you will always find fault in it. So.
No, you're talking to a perfectionist here. I'm not happy. I don't like anything like this. Floppy, it doesn't look iridescent. It's got too much white.
Okay, guys, I see a lot of people are kind of done. Ooh, I'm tipping over. Done with that part. So we're going to grab our chalk again, and we're going to start in on the polar bear. Don't worry, it's separate, so you can come back and revisit the Northern Lights and go all perfection on that one in a bit, okay? Knocking over things. All right. So I like to have my polar bear have a little bit of like character. So I'm going to be doing my oval a little cockeyed. So if this is, if it was straight, it'd be like that, but I'm tipping it just ever so slightly. And we're going to go, if this is the half of my painting, I'm going to go just a little bit above that to do the top of my oval. And I'm going to go a little sideways. I'm just going to do a nice big old oval. Okay. I want it to be leaving, because the oval is pretty much going to be the sides of your bear's head. So keep that in mind. Your ears are going to stick out a little bit past that. But pretty much we're going to have like the oval taking up more than like half of your painting right now, in width, not in height. All right, so I got, this is where the chalk is just super nice. I feel like I'm drawing on an old chalkboard, you know. So go ahead and draw your ovals. Or if you're better at squares, make a square and then make it an oval inside the square. Put that next to it. Is that posted with it too? Yeah. Okay. Everybody does have the copies of the paper are in the supply list, I think. So if you need that. All right, and I'm just going to be dividing my oval into fourths, like some sort of demented pie. Those are going to be some of our reference points. Got our oval, got our nice divided pie. I'm going to then be drawing the marks for where I want the ears to be. So if this is our 12 o'clock position, and this is our 3, is that 3 o'clock, right? Yeah, 3, yeah. Obviously not, obviously I'm millennial, don't know analog clocks. So this is gonna be our 1, 2, and 3 o'clock position. I'm going to just go right under the 2 o'clock position and make a mark right there. And then at our 3 o'clock position, I'm going to make a mark there. And I'm going to just flip that to being on the other side as well. And say you mess up on where you want your chalk to be, just wet the corner of your handy dandy wipe rag, and you can just go in there and clean up those edges. Don't scrub too hard because you will scrub through your black paint. I have done that before. It's not fun. I don't recommend it. Just go in there and see See, and it's nice and cleaned up enough for us to draw again if we say needed to move a line. All right, hopefully you guys are better at analog clocks than me and you have those lines put down. All righty, so the next part we're going to be doing is, you see this middle line right here? We're going to be dividing that into 5 and also this into 5. I typically eyeball this, but if it helps you, you can think of things in fourths. So I just divide this line in half again. And then what I'm going to do is, that's my eyeball line. I'm just going to put it on equal sides of that. And now I have, oh, that's a little far. Now I have five spots that are about equal. So that's about equal to that, to that, to that. Just for roundabout gesture. So I'm erasing the inside of my line right here so that you guys can see what I'm about the distance mine is. So now we have something that looks kind of like a squash scope, right, for a rifle. We're going to take this line and I'm going to extend it out. And this line I'm going to extend it out. So the first one of each line, I'm going to move that up. So we kind of get that cross section right there. And that's going to be where our corner of our sesame seed eyes are going to go. So I'm just going to draw a little sesame seed and a little sesame seed. And here's a close, let's see if we can do a close up of that. So I'm just kind of mainly making, or maybe a teardrop shape, whichever's easier for you to kind of realize, just like a big old sesame seed. And you can kind of see I'm kind of leaving about where the end of the sesame seed is about halfway through, a little bit over halfway through my 5 lines. Points. Give you guys a second. I know that was a lot.
Yeah, looks like people are still drawing, so.
And you can go ahead and erase these lines right here that you made to find the corner of your sesame seeds once you're done drawing your sesame seeds. All right, we're going to do our ears now. We're going to be making an oval that goes out about an inch or so from, well, it's about, that's like, not a hairdresser's inch or so, but like a real, that's like 2 inches out. And then just do a half oval. On both sides. Kind of looks like a demented sock monkey. But. Alrighty, sounds good. I'm also gonna be extending this, the first line down here, that's gonna be at the top of our nose. So I'm just extending that out a little bit, kind of to the edge of our first lines on our horizontal line. Alright. So we're gonna be drawing the little ear flaps and give some perspective to the ears. I like to start about, if you were to think about this in thirds, I like to start about at 1/3 and think of it almost like a triangle. So if I were to try to make a triangle out of that, but then I take the top part and just wrap it a little bit longer. It makes a nice little ear shape. And I'll just repeat that on the other side. Maybe like moments. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna give him a nice big old beard, a little extra winter chubbiness. So I'm gonna go, and we're gonna think about this as kind of like a heart, okay? So we're gonna start at this top part. We're gonna make a little bit of a heart shape. We're not gonna go too deep because we don't want to make them look too funky, but they're kind of like a flattened heart up here. We're gonna wrap down along the side. So I'm thinking about the point being here for the heart, right? But then I just extend it out just a little bit more. So make a big heart and then just add a little bit of extra down at the bottom. And you can go ahead and erase like the little midpoint so you can see that definition if you'd like and see if you want to add more or not. Make that a little darker for you guys to see. See that a little bit better. Okay. All righty, the next step is we're going to be giving him some blubber. So I'm going to take this point that's right underneath his ear, see where the ear and the face connect. I'm going to take that and I'm going to go down and give it a little bit of a concave look and kind of make a weirdly shaped L, okay? Just make a big old L going down. You want it to be kind of pointed, slanted down like this, because that's where his bare cleavage is. You're going towards his bare cleavage, you know. Give him some blubber. Oops. All right, and then on the other side of the face, I'm gonna give a little bit of space in between the ear before I start that. I'm just gonna go down a little bit. That way we give them a little bit more of a defined look, more less roly-poly and more regal. And I'm gonna do the same L, just working the other way. And you could make your bear super fat, like you just gorge some seals too, and just go really crazy with the lumps. Like, okay, you had too many Oreos. No good. All right, we're gonna add 2 more lumps on our right side. I like mine to be kind of angular, but if you want to do yours completely round, you can. I like to make mine kind of like I'm making a V. Put a little bit more on that side. So I've got 3 fat rolls on this side, and to counterbalance the big one, I'm just going to put 1 more right there, connecting off. Something that you can accidentally fall into is, say you put your fat roll a little too high and it ends down here instead of over here. It'll make him look like he has a floating head. So you want to make sure to make him wider at the bottom than he is at the top. Okay, so make sure you're going more like for this triangle thing rather than skinnier at the bottom. Okay. Give you guys a second to work on your fat rolls. Never thought I'd say that in a sentence.
Yeah.
And I can take any questions if anyone has any. We'll pause long enough for someone to type if they need a question. So that's always the danger, is like, do I stop and type real quick? Do I have enough time?
You can also drop in the chat if we are going too fast or too slow. There are 36 people online, so we're trying to keep it moving, but we don't want to lose everybody too.
I've only done this Blubber like 5 times already, so in preparing for this, so I go really fast. And I'm just rinsing out my paintbrushes because I was bad and I didn't, so you can totally do that as well. This is how I ruin so many brushes, as I forget about it, I get going. Get everything drying.
Looks like some other people forgot to wash out their paintbrushes, so it's all good.
At least I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
Oh no. It's okay if your paint's a little thick when you let it to dry out, per se, accidentally. If your paint's thin on your brush though, and you let it sit to dry, you're more likely to cause damage.
All right, I don't have anything in the chat, so.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, the next one, we're going back up to the face. So taking our chalk again, we're gonna go kind of close to the corner of our sesame seeds. We're gonna go down to the bottom of this and we're just gonna make a big old U with a little bit fatter on the bottom than maybe we typically would make a U. Okay. And make a nice big U with the bottom of it resting. Now we're gonna work on the nose. So the nose is gonna be kind of Superman hero shape mixed with like just a basic hexagon. So we got our top line here. We're gonna put our bottom line about the same length, okay? We're just gonna make a V between the two of them. Nice and easy. Okay. That's gonna be our nose. Bears have big noses for smelling big distances. So you can make it big. If you make it small, you know, you can just be a bad hunter. It's okay.
You won't survive long.
You won't survive long. Hopefully it doesn't have a small nose and fat, because then that's just a lie. You can't do that. Alrighty, so we've got our nose, and you can erase out that middle line if you'd like. You can kind of see, and I can also erase these lines going this way, okay? And also this one going this way, just under the chin where we were. Oops, a little bit. I'm just cleaning up my chalk, so you guys can do that too if you'd like. Make it a little bit easier for you guys to see what I'm doing though. Oh, I erased a little bit of that, sorry.
It's mouthless.
It's mouthless. And a little bit too hard with the chalk. But also this might be a good point for you to step back from your painting a couple feet, just take good 3 or 4 steps back and just look at it, see if you like the shape of your head. See if like maybe your eye is way wonky this way. Perspective, you know, it's easier to look, find the way out of the maze when you've stepped backwards rather than, or like just right in here, so.
I can see you going.
Looks like he's got like a cross.
Oh, Chris, it's
Yeah.
wild.
Well, you know, he's a monkey, right?
It's just a hairless pool there.
Okay, so we're just gonna add a little bit of chin underneath this little the division of the mouth. We're just gonna kind of go evenly on both sides and just make a little bit of a chin too. All righty, so the next part we're going to be doing is we're going to be painting the first white layer on our bear. Acrylic paint takes a second to really build up color and stuff. So because we're painting white on black, we're going to be painting white on there. Okay, so you can take your little brush, or you can go at it with your big brush if you'd like, if you're feeling brave. I'm gonna go in with my little brush. And what I'm gonna be doing, because I want to keep those chalk lines in there, I'm gonna show you guys real quick how I keep where my lines are. So say I'm painting this section white. I am going to be coming up and leaving just a little bit of a black line area through there so that I know where my line was, okay? So, and that'll help me in the future. Say I accidentally went like that though, and I went through it on accident. You can just come through with the back of the paintbrush while it's still wet and redraw in the line with the back of the paintbrush, okay? So we're just gonna go through and we're just gonna paint a white layer base on pretty much everything. We're gonna avoid the nose. We don't need to paint in the nose, the eyes. We're gonna go around and we're just gonna get through our basic white coat. And it helps if you are painting in the direction of the hair that would typically be growing on a polar bear. So their hair kind of parts right here and it goes this way around the heart shape. And then same thing on the other side, they have like a bad middle part type thing going on where their hair grows. You can just emphasize that. Another tip is to, on the nose, you're going to be going up because the hair grows kind of up on their nose, going that way, and then it can kind of branch up and around. And then right underneath the eye, it's going to pull away, going down the face like this, okay? Go like that. And polar bears have black skin, so that the black underpainting is only going to help us in reflecting the trueness of a polar bear. mustache. All right.
Upgraded your brush, I see.
Yeah. I moved to a bigger brush because I'm doing the big swaths and I'm not going around anything tiny. But if you're not comfortable and you're a little worried about your previous lines, don't upgrade. It's okay.
Yeah, because after we get this initial white layer on, we'll be letting it dry. So you'll have
You have time to fidget with it. if you
about,
need to.
yeah, about 15 minutes of.
Acrylic paint looks best when you do multiple layers and you let the first layer dry before you go on to the next layer. Because otherwise it can create some interesting textures that might not go with what you're painting. Some artists utilize that for their advantage, but we're gonna avoid those multiple problems. We're just gonna let you guys have a drying period between. So this motion right here is called scumbling by a lot of artists. And I totally went over my lines, but don't follow my example because I totally was paying attention to my scumbling and not what I was doing. So I'm gonna just draw that back in with the back of my paintbrush, just like that.
Supposed to be able to, like, forecasting a 5 for Northern Lights tonight. So.
Oh man, that's
clear.
fortuitous.
Yeah.
Must have summoned it with our
Oh yeah, for those of you in Alaska, anyway.
painting of the Northern Lights here. All right, so I'm at the point where I'm just gonna let it dry before I do anything else. I've covered all the body and at least one layer. I've got the ears and the face covered, the chin and the mouth and the cheeks. I left the nose black and the eyes black because we're gonna be painting those black, and so we don't need to paint them with an undercoat of white. So, or we're gonna be painting them with darker colors, so not exactly black on all of it, but. And I rinsed out my brushes this time so that when my paint's drying, it's not drying on my brush, so. Hopefully we do the same.
So Nicole Whittington Evans is the Alaska Program Director for Defenders of Wildlife.
Hello, and thank you all for joining us this evening. I have to say it is so inspiring to see so many people from all across the country joining us for this event, and including all ages, children and adults. So thank you so much. My name is Nicole Whittington Evans, and I am the Alaska Program Director for Defenders of Wildlife. I'm speaking to you today from the traditional lands of the Dena'ina Athabascan peoples in what is now South Central Alaska. And in my talk, I'll be addressing lands and wildlife issues in Alaska's Arctic that encompass the traditional homelands of the Gwich'in Athabascan and the Inupiat Eskimo peoples. All of these indigenous cultures, along with many others in Alaska, have subsisted and thrived from the lands and waters surrounding them for millennia and continue to do so today. Their long histories, cultural traditions, and engagement with surrounding lands, water, and wildlife are deserving of much respect, and I am really grateful to be able to speak to you about them today. My talk will focus on polar bears and the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. First, I'll review a bit about polar bears, their status in the US, and then move into threats and what's ahead for these bears. I'll start with some general information about polar bears. Polar bears, or Ursus maritimus, also known as sea bears, have evolved and adapted to living in Arctic conditions. They live across the circumpolar Arctic and hunt seal, their primary food source, from sea ice. Adult males can weigh between 775 to 1,300 pounds and stand between 8 and almost 10 feet. Adult females weigh between 330 to 650 pounds and stand about 6 to 8 feet tall. Polar bears can live up to about 30 years in the wild. And unlike other bears, polar bears are active throughout the long winter and do not hibernate. However, starting at around 4 to 6 years of age, females reach reproductive maturity, and pregnant females practice a behavior called denning. In the fall, pregnant females will dig large holes in the snow to create dens where they will give birth to 1 or 2 cubs. These dens can be found on land in the snow or offshore on sea ice, and increasingly they are found on shore. Cubs are born between 1 to 2 pounds and are helpless with their eyes closed. They are born between November and January and depend on their mother for food and warmth and will nurse up to 30 months. Cubs and mothers emerge from their dens in late March or April. When a polar bear mother and her new cub emerges from their den, they rely on the Arctic coastal areas and sea ice to hunt for seals, their primary food source. As I was saying, there are 19 polar bear populations throughout the circumpolar Arctic, 2 of which include the United States in part of their range, the Chukchi and the Southern Beaufort Sea populations. And you can see on this map, the range for the Southern Beaufort Sea population that's outlined in red, and the Chukchi population range is just to the right of that. This slide shows polar bear habitat range in the US only, and includes range for both the Chukchi and Southern Beaufort Sea populations of bears. The Chukchi population, estimated to number 2,937 bears in 2018, is found in both Russia and Alaska and is considered a healthy population at this time. Its range is primarily in the western portion of this map, in the Chukchi and Bering Seas. The Southern Beaufort Sea population's range to the east spans parts of Canada and Alaska, although the Canadian portion isn't shown on this map. It has declined precipitously from approximately 1,800 bears in the late 1980s to 1,500 in 2007 to only 900 at the last completed census in 2015. That's a 50% reduction in 3 decades and a 40% drop just since 2000. Extensive sea ice loss in the range of the southern Beaufort Sea population is considered the cause of the decline. This population is one of the most imperiled on the globe. Alaska's Arctic is experiencing dramatic shifts across the landscape with the effects of climate change occurring at twice the rate of the rest of the world. Significant loss of sea ice from a warming climate is one example of this change. As depicted on this map, on September 15th, 2020, the sea ice cover reached its annual summer minimum, the second smallest on record. And you can see from the yellow line, the median extent of sea ice from 1981 to 2010. This map is available at climate.gov, and it's courtesy of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and the National Snow and Ice Data Center. Polar bears depend on sea ice to hunt seals, their primary food source, and loss of sea ice has meant that more polar bears are spending longer periods of time on land and less able to hunt for seals. Because of the threat of climate impacts and sea ice loss, key habitat for polar bears were listed as threatened under the Endangered Species Act in May of 2008. The Endangered Species Act ensures that management activities by agencies are focused on protecting and recovering imperiled species. It also requires critical habitat designations. Defenders advocated for the Endangered Species Act listing and also for the designation of polar bear critical habitat, which occurred in 2010. More than 120 million acres were designated as critical habitat, 96% of which is sea ice. That leaves 4% of critical habitat onshore. Polar bears are also protected under the Marine Mammal Protection Act, which protects polar bears from human activities that may kill, injure, harass, or disrupt essential behaviors like breeding, nursing, and sheltering. Working with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Native entities and organizations, and other environmental, non-governmental organizations, Defenders has participated in the Polar Bear Recovery Task Force. We contributed to the development of the Fish and Wildlife Service Polar Bear Conservation Management Plan, which was finalized in late 2016. We continue to participate in the Recovery Task Force's Reduction of Human Polar Bear Conflicts Committee and have provided for the construction and shipment of 14 food storage lockers to the community of Kaktovik, which are seen in the photo on the bottom right. And that helps people in Kaktovik store food without the threat of polar bears raiding their food caches. We also support polar bear patrols, which use non-lethal deterrence measures as a first line of defense to keep people and communities safe in the Arctic. With the loss of sea ice, polar bears are spending more time on land, which has created increased human-bear conflicts in villages. We also put together this graph that essentially shows with increased sea ice loss, how much further polar bears are required to swim in order to get either from shore to sea ice or vice versa. And polar bears are capable of swimming, but there are limits to the distances that they can swim. Defenders also tracks planning proposals in polar bear habitat to try to ensure that the best decisions are made to conserve and protect polar bears. And we've also testified in numerous congressional hearings and worked with members of Congress to protect polar bears and their habitat. This map I included primarily because it not only shows polar bear critical habitat, but it also shows oil and gas leases in the US Arctic. I will admit that the oil and gas leases that are shown here are not completely up to date. So really what I want you to look at when you look at this map is the purple colored band that's across the onshore portion of this map, and that is the onshore critical denning habitat for polar bears. And then the bluish green color just to the north of that and just adjacent to it is the offshore critical habitat area. And I'll be talking a little bit more about these areas, but you can see that on to the west is the National Petroleum Reserve, Alaska. In the central Arctic region with the red road line coming down, that's the Prudhoe Bay, Central Arctic and oil and gas development kind of zone. And then to the right is the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. Aside from sea ice loss and climate change, other threats to polar bears include habitat intrusions and fragmentation from increased human activities such as oil and gas development. Human-caused mortality can also be a threat to polar bears. As shown in this photo, which was taken by Pam Miller, oil and gas development includes roads and road building, gravel mining, often many drill pads and drill sites, pipelines, airstrips, processing facilities, fuel storage facilities, human camps that house 150 to 180 people, airstrips or more, airstrips, vehicle and airplane traffic, and much more. Oil and gas development means the complete conversion of wildland to hugely impacted industrial areas, resulting in very significant impacts to polar bear habitat. This photo is from a development on Alaska's North Slope and illustrates how one development is connected to the next by pipelines and roads, and how this results in a sprawl of development across the landscape. One can also see gas flaring in this photo, which does regularly occur. This map, which was just created in its current form today, shows the most up-to-date information with respect to where oil and gas leases are allowed. And that includes a decision that was finalized yesterday in the National Petroleum Reserve, which opened up 18 million acres to oil and gas leasing. And this area is shown by the cross-hatched marks on the map. Also, you can see the cross-hatching in the Central Arctic, and now the Arctic Refuge, also the coastal plain area, that 1002 area that's outlined in black, is also available for oil and gas leasing. So virtually all of polar bear critical habitat, with the exception of a little area to the right of the 1002 area, in this section of the Arctic is open to oil and gas leasing. And the critical habitat is the green band. So now I'd like to turn our attention to the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, which is just an incredibly awe-inspiring place. I want to speak a little bit about its importance to wildlife, to polar bears, to caribou and other wildlife, and development activities that are planned for the area. The refuge is located in the northeast corner of Alaska, and it is a national treasure and the largest and wildest of all the refuges in the National Wildlife Refuge system. As an intact unit, it harbors the greatest biodiversity of any protected area north of the Arctic Circle. The coastal plain depicted in this photograph is considered the biological heart of the refuge. Among other values, it is key caribou calving habitat for the approximately 200,000 head porcupine caribou herd, nesting habitat for millions of migratory birds that come from continents across the globe, and the most important onshore denning habitat in the US Arctic for the southern Beaufort Sea polar bears. The refuge is important for many other species as well, including Arctic fox, muskox, brown bears, wolves, Arctic terns, snow geese, snowy owls, and many, many more. This map is a Fish and Wildlife Service map taken from the overall management plan of the Arctic Refuge, called the Comprehensive Conservation Plan. And the light green area in the map shows a 7 million acre congressionally designated wilderness area. And the darker green areas are suitable wilderness, but not designated wilderness. You can also see the communities of Arctic Village on the south central boundary of the map, where the boundary hits its northernmost point, and the village of Kaktovik in the northernmost section outlined by a black box. Kaktovik is the only community actually within the boundary of the Arctic Refuge, and it is situated on a barrier island adjacent to the Beaufort Sea in the Arctic Ocean. The Arctic Refuge was originally established 60 years ago on December 6, 1960, as the Arctic National Wildlife Range by the Eisenhower administration. In 1980, with the passage of the Alaska National Interest Lands Conservation Act, the area was enlarged to include the dark green area in the south of the refuge, and it was renamed the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. The dark green area in the north shows the boundary of the Arctic Refuge coastal plain 1002 area. This number 1002 refers to a section of the Alaska National Interest Lands Conservation Act that excluded this area from wilderness designation. The 1002 area has been the subject of many attempts to open it for oil and gas development. Throughout the decades, though, there has been sufficient bipartisan support to reject those efforts. However, in 2017, that changed when Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski successfully included a provision in the Tax Act that opened the area to oil and gas leasing, which was a very significant turning point for the Arctic Refuge. The Tax Act directed that the Bureau of Land Management administer an oil and gas leasing program similar to the one in the Western Arctic's National Petroleum Reserve, Alaska. Since passage of the Tax Act, the Bureau of Land Management has completed a leasing program environmental analysis, which we and many of our partners are currently litigating. They've planned a lease sale for the area that will take place tomorrow on January 6th. And the agency is considering a seismic exploration proposal that is planned to start in late January and would run through the winter and spring of this year. As part of the seismic proposal, the Fish and Wildlife Service has developed a draft incidental harassment authorization, which, if approved, would allow polar bears to be harassed during seismic activities. As I mentioned before, the people of the Arctic Refuge include the Gwich'in and Inupiat indigenous peoples. This slide shows Gwich'in Athabascan elder Sarah James on the bottom right and her village, Arctic Village, to her left, and Inupiat polar bear viewing guide and Kaktovik resident Robert Thompson with the village of Kaktovik to his right. The Gwich'in, whose cultural livelihood is tied to the porcupine caribou herd, consider the coastal plain of the Arctic Refuge the sacred place where life begins, because of the caribou calving grounds found there. Gwich'in tribes have been unanimously opposed to oil and gas development in the coastal plain since the earliest threats of it in the 1980s, and they have worked tirelessly to halt any development in the area. Inupiat in Kaktovik and elsewhere across the Arctic slope are divided on the issue. Some favor and some oppose development in the Arctic Refuge. Defenders and other conservation organizations have worked alongside the Gwich'in for many years to protect this important place. This map again shows the onshore polar bear critical habitat in light purple. You can see from the width of the critical habitat in the Arctic Refuge compared to areas further west that the denning habitat in the Arctic Refuge is disproportionately important to southern Beaufort Sea polar bears. 77% of the Arctic Refuge coastal plain is designated critical habitat. This map shows the lease tracts that are available to the oil industry to bid on tomorrow. These tracts are throughout polar bear critical habitat. In the final hour, the Trump administration removed a number of tracts, 1 through 9, and then 11 and 12 that you can see here in the lease tracts, but all of the rest are available for bidding. And tomorrow they will be sold. Also, I mentioned a seismic proposal that is right now being considered. And seismic activities would be conducted across approximately 550.5 square miles of the coastal plain this winter. The seismic program would involve the use of vibroses machines or vibrator trucks that send seismic waves deep into the earth and then bounce back. Geophysicists are able to record the waves to learn about oil and gas reservoirs located beneath the Earth's surface. This is done in a grid pattern with receiver lines spaced at about 660 feet apart and source lines around 1,300 feet apart. Operations would require a mobile crew of up to 180 people and would continue 24 hours a day. Workers would be housed in as many as 50 trailers, which would be dragged across the tundra by bulldozers every few days. Scouting crews, generators, temporary airstrips, incinerators, and wastewater discharges, and other industrial activities and equipment would also be needed. Activities would not be limited to just winter. The proposal calls for intensive summer cleanup activities as well. These vehicles and caravans of trailers moving across the tundra could inadvertently crush an undetected polar bear den or disturb a polar bear in her den such that she abandons her den and possibly her cubs, leaving cubs to die. Cubs that emerge early from dens are also at risk of death. This map shows the proposed transportation route across polar bear critical habitat for the seismic operations and the area where seismic activities would occur, which is outlined in a turquoise color. Access into the refuge would be an overland access route if the proponents are able to get their permit approved, and would start in Dead Horse, traversing polar bear critical habitat as it goes. This access route would traverse 48.61 miles of the refuge near the coast, also in polar bear critical habitat. The seismic area consists of mostly federal refuge land, but also includes private lands belonging to Kaktovik Inupiat Corporation, which you can see here that in the crosshatched area. Defenders is engaged in the seismic proposal planning process, both with the Bureau of Land Management and the Fish and Wildlife Service. We and our partners have asked the judge in our leasing case for the Arctic Refuge for a preliminary injunction to stop the transfer of any leases sold that are sold tomorrow and any seismic activities. The judge heard argument today on this and is expected to rule on our preliminary injunction as early as tonight. May have already ruled. The next slide shows a few things that are a couple things that you can do to help out. First of all, at this point in time, there is a public comment period that's open related to the Fish and Wildlife Service incidental harassment authorization, and comments are due by January 7th. You can tell them that you don't agree with allowing seismic activities in the refuge and that you want to see polar bears protected. Defenders of Wildlife has an alert related to this, and we'd be happy to get it to any one of you who might be interested. And the alert will help you compose a letter to the Fish and Wildlife Service. This is the website address for providing comments to the Fish and Wildlife Service. And then I would also say that you should stay in touch with defenders for future information. We anticipate working with the incoming Biden administration to halt development activities in the Arctic Refuge and in polar bear critical habitat. And there will be other ways that you can help in the future. And so staying in touch with us and keeping up to date would be really important for those of you interested in taking action. thank you so much again for joining us tonight and for listening. And I'd be happy to take any questions, or we can turn it back over to Carrie with her amazing painting abilities.
Thanks, Nicole. Let me check the chat here. Are we hoping Biden will shut this down? Oh, it looks like Rosa replied, denied, sadly. I will post this link in the chat once I turn the time back over to Carrie. I got to switch screens here. Do we have any other questions for Nicole? If not, I will get that link in. I will also put my email so that you can email me any questions or anything as well. All right, I think that we can turn it back over to Carrie, and then I'll get that link.
Okay, guys, we're gonna, now that our painting is dry, make sure all your areas are dry. I got a little bit of a wet spot right there, obviously still, but you're gonna go around and kind of erase your chalk lines, see how much of a difference that is for my perspective on where the end of my polar bear actually is.
Hold on a second.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Nicole, do you mind stopping your screen share? All right. So that we can, I'm gonna spotlight Carrie's video. And there we go. Okay, you should be back up.
All right, so I'm just gonna go around. As you can see, I erased the chalk line from here, but I didn't from here, and you can tell it changes what I think or what I see what I'm actually dealing with on my canvas. So I'm just gonna go around and erase those chalk lines, because hopefully I can see them from where I didn't paint. And just be aware if you have any wet spots, be aware of them. You can tap it with the back of your hand, because then you're not going to get a fingerprint ridges in there. The back of your hand's pretty safe, and then you can see a nice even display of it. Okay. Looks different, right? It looks way different. So we're gonna give you a second to erase all those. A slightly damp towel, not scrubbing too hard, will get those off. Not a problem. Okay. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be mixing up a little bit of light gray, and for me I'm going to take from this paint pile here, and I have black right here. I'm going to mix these together till I have a little bit of dark gray that kind of suits my tone I'm looking for. Just mixing that together. About right there, that seems about right. Okay, so you guys can see lighter than a charcoal gray, we're going to go for. And we're going to be laying that down right underneath our chin and our beard of our polar bear. And you can go over that line that you made and that you came to, because that's going to serve as the edge of where we're going to be considered painting. Give them a nice shadow underneath this chin. All right. So right now I kind of have straight edges. What I'm going to be doing is going in once in a while and kind of making it look like he has a little bit of scruff, right? So I don't want it super even pattern or anything like that, just a little bit of texture to him, okay? Make him a little fluffy. Also going to be making it go a little bit up out to this side, making it go down into his chest. So just drawing it out a little bit. You want to go in that direction of where the hair is going. So it's going from the chin down. Then I'm going to do another extra little bit, another extra V going out down towards the bottom. That's showing on the painting because I can't see it.
Yeah.
All right. Also going to be doing the inside of my ears that same color as well. But I'll give you guys a second to finish that portion down here, okay? Oops. Okay. So I'm going to make some more of that dark, same total level as the stuff we had down here. We're just going to go on the inside of the ears and make that darker gray. I'm just rotating my hand around so I can get the best like drag through. Sometimes you just think of it in one direction, whereas you can rotate your hand, say this way, and paint that way. All right, we're going to add some shadow to our fat rolls. So underneath this, we're going to take that same gray and move it this way. We can do a little bit on top of the fat roll and then pull it in. So just adding a little bit there and then just pulling it in towards that area right here in the center. Do the same thing on this one. And then I'm not going to have that one connect, but I am going to connect this one because it's a little bit closer to where I want to. A little bit of our fat rolls connected. Cool. I'm also going to add a little bit of shadow right underneath the top of the fat roll. Topper. So a little bit right there. Okey-dokey. All right, so I'm just rinsing out my brush because I had a lot of paint buildup. So if you have a bunch of stuff in the heel of your brush, you can wipe it off if you'd like, or you can wash it out. I do it out of habit, so.
Carrie Becker.
How's that, Mark?
Yeah.
All right. So next part we're going to be doing is we're going to be mixing a shade lighter of a dark gray of a gray than this. So I want it to be not as white as our white, but not as dark as this gray. So I'm just going to add a little bit more white into that mixture that I already had going. I'm going to thin it out with a little bit of water. And we're talking like I'm barely dipping it, the very tip of my brush into the water. I don't want a lot. Just need a little bit of thinning out. Okay, so this is going to be the nerve-wracking part for you guys because we're going to be sculpting the face. Polar bears kind of have these, they almost look like spectacles on the way that their muscles are around their eyes. So if you think kind of spectacle and just go within, so if I were to do a Harry Potter circle right here, Harry Potter glasses right here, that's kind of the shape we're going for around his eye with that really light gray. I don't know if you guys can see. Yeah, you guys can see that. Cool. Yeah. So that's kind of the shape we're going for around his eyes. And we're just going to connect this part down through the nose. The same gray is going to go up through the nose. I'm just coming up to that line that I previously had. Okay, give you guys a second to do that. You're just going to work on your spectacles, circle, and then up through the nose. And you want to do it in a light gray. If you do it too dark, it's going to look like spectacles and not the look we're going for the. So if it's looking a little bit too much like spectacles, we can go over it in white and it'll help lighten that up. So give you guys a second to do that.
All right, there's a few questions in the chat box and we're trying to answer them. Nicole just answered there regarding Nicole's presentation. So
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead and answer those.
what was the one question? What is Defenders pursuing? So Nicole gave this message that you can read in the chat. And then we also have another question. Is it possible to share Nicole's presentation? I'll send out the link to the recording that will include the video. Yeah, so I don't have everybody's email. So if you do want to receive the paint night presentation video and the Nicole's presentation, I'm going to put my email down here again. And you need to email me, and then I can send it directly to you. Okay, just make sure I didn't fat finger any letters here. So just send me an email and tell me if you want the recording and the presentation, and then I'll send it to you. Those are great questions. I'm just gonna look and see. Looks like people are still painting. Yeah, it's good. Nicole got her chat function working, so.
Okay.
I think so.
All right, peeps, let's do this. So we're gonna take that same light gray that we had for the spectacles, and we're just gonna make a little bit of cheek fluffiness. So I'm just kind of making almost like little cartoon fluffy marks kind of deal. I'm just gonna go
Lightning bolts.
alongside little lightning bolts. Yeah, another Harry Potter reference. I don't
Yep.
know. I might like Harry Potter. It might be. All right, kind of like that. We're also going to go down the middle of his forehead, and we're just going to, I don't know if you guys can see that really well. Okay, yeah, just dividing it down the middle and just going up a little bit out the sides, kind of making like a, almost like a plant type action down the middle, emphasizing he's got that middle line part right there. Also going to take that light gray and go underneath his nose. So you're going to make kind of like a little square box stash. Like a, sorry, the only person I know that has it is Hitler. So use that lighter gray kind of deal. And that's actually, you're seeing down into the skin on a polar bear right through there. And since their skin is black, it makes this light gray type thing. I'm just going to blend that out ever so slightly. Okay.
So this event is scheduled to end at 6 o'clock, but if we run over time, we'll keep going. And then just know if you do have to jump off at 6 o'clock, this is Alaska time. I can send you the recording. So if you need to finish the final details.
Okay. All righty. So now we're going to take our white and we're going to go back over our highlights again. Say you went a little, say this cheek fuzz is a little thick. What I can do with this white is I can come through, I can re-emphasize it on both sides, kind of like that. And that kind of gives us a more defined cheek fuzz, okay? So not only is laying down paint in one section painting, but pushing in from the edges with a different color also is a painting tool that a lot of times is overlooked. So I'm pushing in the white paint on the sides of this, creating extra definition to what I already previously painted. So I'm just going to go around, kind of do that to all my fuzzes. I'm gonna do that to these cheek fuzzes. This is where you're gonna get really that fluffy texture that we wanted in our polar bear. So this is where I'm gonna go in on that cheek fuzz and make him look like a fluffy polar bear he is. I remember as a kid learning that like their hairs were hollow, and it created that like that extra insulation, and I thought that was the coolest thing. I always imagined straws for some reason, but you know, it's a little thicker than a straw, but yeah, this one. Just going around, re-emphasizing all that fun fuzzy stuff. She's down, she's down. Let's turn the computer off for John. That would have been entertaining. I'm sure they would have loved that. That's my
Good
job,
job,
don't you know,
Sam.
the klutz?
I know.
That's fine.
I just got excited.
So in between, when I'm relaying in these highlights on the top of the head, typically the top of the head and the top of the ears are going to probably be your whitest whites. So you want to make sure you re-emphasize those specifically. And when I get to this gray part, I'm just kind of, see if I can get up close. Or there we go. So if this is my brush and this is my canvas, instead of painting like this, when I come to the edge, I'm lifting up like that and kind of making a flicking motion. And I come to these edges over here, and that just allows me to feather into the lighter gray area and get not so drastic a coloring.
And we do know that it is getting late for some folks, so
Okay.
if you need to drop your email in the chat box.
All right, so you can continue with that step as well farther, and we'll do the nose real quick and the eyes real quick. That way you guys can come back to this part, because that'll be probably easiest to. All right, so the eyes, what we're gonna do for the eyes is we're gonna take our small paintbrush. We're gonna get our black. We're gonna go in. Let's see, right up to this. And just go in with they have very dark black eyes. So that's pretty much just the solid black we're gonna be doing. And then we'll add some highlights here in a second to it.
Just so you know, people are saying thank you for the joyful and relaxing event.
All right. So with the polar bear's nose, we've got, we're going to do the nostril parts first, which are essentially half ovals. So I'm just going to go in like that, do a half oval on that side. And this is both at kind of like on this, more on this side of the hexagon that we started off with. So All right, and there's where I'm putting my half ovals. Okay. You got nice big old nostrils to suck in all that air to smell things, so. Alright. And I'm gonna be adding in a little bit of charcoal. Sorry, I'm gonna make a dark charcoal color by adding in a little bit of white into my paintbrush. And I'll bring this over for you guys to see. All right, so it's gonna be about that. That's my black, that's my charcoal. So like one hair above black. And what I'm gonna be doing paintbrush wise is I'm gonna be, see how I have like this rounded here. This is where I'm gonna push my brush up through and I'm gonna round out kind of the top of my nose, okay? I'm gonna go right through here. Gonna get a little bit rounder. And come up and through.
Oh, your hair is
Is my hair blocking? Dang it.
it's focusing on your
I'm
hair.
sorry. Okay. Spiky hair. It happens every time. Okay. So I just kind of took my paintbrush with one stroke and came up this way. And doing the same, going slightly over my black nostril holes that I made. Just because I want that nice bead of paint going around the outside of the nose. Okay. And you're going to paint the whole nose that color. Oops. I went over the nostril a little too much, so I'm gonna. Alrighty, so then we're gonna take another little dark, we're gonna go back into our black. And we're gonna just divide up the nose again, just like that. And that makes a little bit darker area. I know it's really hard to see on this, I'm sorry. Ooh, let me see better. Like that. Yeah, okay, so just making a little bit black line here. Alrighty. I'm gonna rinse out this brush real quick. And it's nice and clean. And we're gonna get a little bit of the white. And I'm gonna add a little bit of white around that edge where the edge of that nostril was, okay? Just nice and subtle. And then also I'm going to do a little bit on the outside of that black. Just a couple lines there. And one on the top. Like that. Perfect. Alrighty. All right, so I'm going to teach you guys a secret on how to get nice eye reflections in there with just a paintbrush like this. That's not super fine, but it's our smallest one. All right. So this is the secret. You're going to take a honking big part of paint on your paintbrush and drag it in such a way that it kind of drips off a little bit farther
A
out.
little struggling with the focus.
Yeah.
I think it's trying to focus on your background.
Yeah, right about that.
There you go.
Okay. So you see, that's not actually paintbrush, that's just paint that's dripping off my brush. We're gonna use that little tiny bit. I'm just gonna take it and I'm gonna put it about in the 10 o'clock position on the eye and just drop it in like that. It's a nice little cute little highlight. And about on the same position on the other side, we're gonna put it right there and just drop it in. Ba-ding. Okay, just like that. Beans. All right, we're gonna take that same charcoal color that we used on the nose. We're gonna take that. We're gonna go on the inside of the ears and make the ear fluffies, okay? That's just gonna kind of drag out like that. And fluffy out like that. Okay. Just like that, nice and simple.
Took some cool tips.
Yeah. Okay. I have my lines pretty thick right through here with the black so that you guys could see it. I'm just gonna paint some white and bring those in real quick. So if you left them thick lighting, just bring that in a little bit because it's a little thick.
And just so you know, I am writing down everybody's emails so that I can email this out.
All right. So the next part is we're going to take our paint pen. If you have just a Sharpie, that'll work as well. And we're going to go around the outside of our drawing. So we're going to start out over here. Helps clean up edges and helps define. Okay, not get a good angle on this one. I might block the screen for a little bit. Sorry, it's way over here.
I can still see.
Okay, this is. This is where you do your fluffies in the paint pen. Oh, that's my paint's still really wet. Okay, so you might have to hit it with a hair blow dryer. I apologize, but I'm gonna go around here. Draw it in like that. Add a little bit of shadow. Okay. Alright, so I just go around and I do that to everything, but where you get the character around the eyes is this little secret. So you're going to take, you're going to be trying to make, so you're going to place your pen down and swipe up like that, okay? And what that does is it makes the bottom of the follicle thicker than the top of the follicle naturally by when you lift up, okay? If you go like this and go in, it's not going to make much sense because the hair is going to be growing down, okay? So we're going to be doing that in the corner right over here by the eyes, and that's just going to be kind of like his eyebrows, essentially. Hold on, that was a little That was a little thick. I want it a little too thick. I apologize. 1 second. It's all clogged up too with paint. Damn it. Shit. 1 second. Okay. Going over that. And that's called the erase button. Okay. We'll go on this side. Okay. So I'm going to take it here and then just move my pen up, make some cute little fluffies, give them some crow's feet. And then also a little bit, almost like a bag under the eye. I'm just going to add just a little bit of facial feature to him. Then I'm going to go, see how I have the gray underneath? I'm going to draw a line here, making the little jaggedy bits. Is this dry yet? It's still not dry. Okay. All right. So we'll go back in and focus on this side now. And some crow's feet. Like that. Go in on the mouth. So I'm drawing down the middle of the mouth, going out like that. I just made his lip. That's just the inside of his lip. Do that underneath the chin. Like that. Still waiting for this whole section to dry. So you guys might be too, as we try to hurry through this. Just outlining where edge of my painting was. Okay. So we're gonna take a break from our outlining because your bears will all be a little different. And we're going to do the stars in the sky. So I'm going to take my paintbrush. You can use either a fan or you can use this type, and you'll just pull back the bristles like this and fling it forward on the brush. So this creates tiny paintbrushes, dots, but if you want bigger ones, I personally like the fan. And just going to fling it like that. And just don't have anything precious behind your painting. It just creates nice little stars everywhere. I'll wipe up your camera.
It's fine.
You can also do this over a sink as well. Toothbrushes also work really well for this too. If you have a dead toothbrush. All right. All right, so I'm just gonna let the rest of this dry and hit highlights on the top of his head and the tops of his ears again. But now you have all the major components. The rest of it is outlining, the rest of this, and then also doing the stars. And if you got that, you probably can handle the rest of everything else. So I'm just hitting this all with highlights again.
I do know we are over 12 minutes.
Yeah, I apologize.
So thanks for sticking with us. There's still 25 of us online. I
Okay.
think all the East Coasters
I
have
feel bad. I was like, oh,
gone to bed.
Try to get there. Try to get all the major concepts out, and then once to stay, can stay.
Yeah.
just covering everything so I don't have any black showing through. This is your second coat of white essentially on everything that you want to get down. Makes everything look much nicer and neater.
I just want to thank everyone for joining tonight.
And I'm just gonna continue up and I'm just gonna repaint over the tops of my whites and just bring them. Oh, nice.
Oh,
Wow.
awesome.
Very good. Wow. That's impressive. Look at those northern lights.
Those are great northern lights.
Too, man. Oh,
It
so you had to
works.
work on the fly to figure out how to do it without
I
the
like
black background.
I like the
Nice.
blue.
I like it.
Not done yet, but we'll get there.
Oh man. He's got a regal demeanor.
I know,
Like
it's-
he's just like,
he's a
yeah.
royal bear.
These are my northern lights. I like it. Oh man.
Jennifer, you have a
Wow.
good name. Just
Yeah.
saying.
Oh, it's so tiny. Oh my gosh.
Oh, you had to paint his body. That's
Tiny
fine.
paintings are the best. That looks so good. Good job.